for me, ODI, both on a personal and a professional level, was incredibly influential. I mean, I had the enormous privilege of working very closely as a young research officer with people like David Booth and Alison Evans, who helped me make sense of the confusion that is, and the challenges and the excitement and your sense of potential, but also not understanding the debates back at headquarters level that I felt after 2.5 years working inside the Rwandan government. So on that very personal level, it shaped a lot of the way I think. But also, I think, and linked to that, the contribution that particularly from my perspective, because that's where I was working, the Centre for Aid and Public Expenditure and PPPG, the Poverty and Public Policy Group, made around aid effectiveness. What is it that makes aid work? What is it that makes country-led development work? What is country-led development? What are its challenges and its trade-offs? And that, both very technical but also politically astute analysis of the reality that is a lot of the development challenge and the challenge of aiding development, I think has been an enormous contribution, and quite a sort of fundamental one in many ways to shaping a lot of the debates of the last decade or so. I think one of the most important things is, I think, international development itself. If you look at the progress developing countries are making, that African governments have made and African countries have made in the last 20 years, it's been actually quite astronomical. We sometimes forget that post-Cold War growth rates, progress rates have been really, really high. What I would love to see by 2020 is a much greater sense of realism about what the development challenge is, by which I mean both in our politicians and our general publics in the West, as well as actually in recipient countries, developing countries themselves, about what is development. It's risky, it's messy, it doesn't always go right. A much greater sense and appetite for failure and learning and understanding that both aid and the development project isn't linear, doesn't go right, is intensely political, and I guess in some ways a little bit more honesty about the challenge that we are as a sector and as developing countries and frankly as a planet really trying to take on. Because I think that would allow all of our resources to go so much further if there was a greater understanding and greater appetite for risk in the development game.